Well, hello developers. This is a testing of my Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft development tutorials. And basically we're doing the introduction. Well, something's missing, right? You just have to figure out how you're going to be able to develop for the simulator. So what do we need to start? You need a 3D modeling program. So 3ds Max, which is the one that Asobo uses. You can use Blender, which is a free 3D modeling program, and Asobo is also set up a GLTF exporter. And the current version is version 1.3.2. Something else you'll need is a text editor. I use Notepad++, but you could also use Visual Studio Code. You need a texturing program. You need some way of making your aircraft or building or whatever you're doing. You want to make it nice looking, realistic looking inside the sim. So you can use Adobe Substance Painter, Quixel Mixer, Armor Paint, or PBR Paint 2.3. And you may also want a paint program so you can manipulate some of those textures. And you can use GIMP, Adobe Paint Shop, Paint.net, and if you want to get into SVG graphics, you can use Inkscape. Well, the resources, I'm not going to go into how to use a 3D modeling program or how to use Substance Painter or whatever. There's plenty of resources out there, so Google is your friend, and YouTube. You should have an understanding of the Microsoft Flight Simulator SDK, the software development kit. Read and do the tutorials that they have there. There's a lot of information that they give you for you to review and read. And what you should do is look at the SDK to get an understanding of terms and things that I'll be talking about. And the other thing is, this is my workflow. Yours may or will be different, and you adjust anything as necessary. There's probably a lot of different ways to do things out there, and I'm only going to show you one of many. So what else do I need to use? Okay. Another 3D modeling program, the GLTF importer. Fly-by-wire has a importer. It's got limited capabilities. You want to see how things are done inside the simulator. So Asobo has done a number of default aircraft. You could actually import that information and actually see how they did it. I use two other programs, a file compare program called WinMerge. You can compare two text files and it shows you the differences. This is a good program to use in the way that a lot of the XML and things, JavaScript and other programs and files are text files, and you may easily compare the before and after of how things work. File find is grepwind. It finds files containing some kind of search text. If you want to find things in the Asobo templates, you need some way of finding something based on a template name or whatever. And all of the times that it appears in a particular XML file, and then you can see how Asobo used it. And one thing you don't really need to, it's optional, learn a bit about programming. What's a variable? What is XML? The if-else type construct. You'll be doing that a lot when you do the XML type of model programming, where you actually want your animations to react to what you're clicking on in the screen and so forth. So what I want to do is an introduction, and we'll present a series of YouTube videos, hopefully about 20 to 30 minutes long. I know I've gone through a couple of videos that are hours long. I don't think that works. I'd like to try to keep them down to 20 or 30 minutes and you cover a specific topic. What I want to cover is subjects presented here over a number of different videos, so I may split a particular topic into a number of smaller videos. The software installation setup, how do you set up dev mode, how would you install Blender and then the Asobo exporter, what's the virtual file system, and this is something that you'll need to know to set up your project correctly. The virtual file systems are a lot of overlapping files and you can end up overwriting the default Asobo stuff or even someone else's type of file. So that's why you hear a lot of people say something doesn't work after I installed such and such a program or such and such an add-on, or they want you to clear your community folder to do the troubleshooting. The virtual file system is the reason that these errors can happen. So what's XML? A brief description of the tags and variables and the file structure. PBR, physics-based rendering or physical-based rendering. These are the textures. So how are they, all of the different ways of providing a realistic-looking aircraft using PBR textures. We'll go into a simple aircraft. We'll see how to set up a project, how to edit, and do in-sim builds. I don't use the external builder. I use the builder inside the sim, which is basically the same thing. How are you going to have your Windows folder set up for that project? What's Flight Simulator sim object config files? What does LOD or level of detail mean? The model XML, this is where you'll get into a little bit of programming. The sound XML and config files, how you want your sound to work. The panel XML, so how to bring in those JavaScript, HTML type glass cockpit information into the aircraft. And then we'll go into the object testing. We'll get the 3D model exported. We'll use the in-sim editors for debugging. We'll do some simple animations, and this is where we'll get into the Asobo XML templates and what they call XML programming. RPM is reverse Polish notation, so you'll see some of the programming language that they use in the XML files. We'll talk about sounds, the different types, and effects. Your first aircraft, well, we'll set up and export and build and debug that. We'll go into the virtual cockpit instruments using JavaScript. Complex animations with armatures and bones, other than just regular keyframes. And then we'll get into C++, WASM modules, and SimConnect. Those last three are really advanced topics, and they'll come later on. But we will be able to get an airplane into the system and be able to fly it. Might be difficult, but we'll get there. So other references. There's references for Blender, all the YouTube programs out, or YouTube guys out there are doing a lot of good work in showing you how to use Blender. I myself use these references. This first one explains the basics of Blender. It's good for the beginner. If you don't have any understanding of Blender, this will teach you all of the different menu options and shortcuts and how to do a lot of things inside Blender and what all of the commands mean. How to build an aircraft. I used a bunch of people here and I'll probably be repeating what they do. Easy Rider, most suited to MSFS sim object creation. He has a lot of simple aircraft development And Ionic Simulations has the same type of thing, but he has more complex features that he demonstrates. The third one, Mark Alloway, he's not specific to Microsoft Flight Simulator, but he has some really good techniques on how to do things in Blender. Apex Mods, another one that I use, has some good modeling techniques. And then the Textures and Substance Painter, there's a bunch of guys out there that'll do that for you too. We'll get into scenery modeling, just some very small stuff, how to do airports, how to do some hangar models. Well, scenery model is a little bit different than sim object modeling and setting up, and we'll get that. I have some references here for downloading Blender. The current Asobo exporter works with Blender 3.3 only. If you use an earlier one or a later one, there are a lot of changes inside Blender that they had to work around. So Blender 3.3 is your best at this point in time. Asobo has their version of the exporter, 1.3.2, and there's the site. Or you can download the Microsoft SD core, and it'll give you some the exporter there. And WinMerge and grepwim, those two extra programs that I talked about that will give you a better way of looking at all the text files and doing some analysis there. So basically that's the introduction that I have. And you may say to yourself, well, I don't want to get that into all that. You need to just show me how to get an aircraft into the sim and I'll do the rest. Well, I'm of the belief that you should understand what you're doing and why, at least as much as you can, and only then can you figure out all this amazing stuff and how it's done. It's just a lot of information, and I'm going to try to dig right down into the deep things. And this may feel like school, but it's a good idea that I want to get into some details, and you just show me. Well, I just do what the other guy did and it worked. Yeah, it'll work until it doesn't, and then you'll be stuck there trying to figure it out. Or you're going to do what this guy's doing, just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. That's not the way to do any of this developing. You should really try to understand as much as you can out of this, and I'm going to try to show you that in the next video if we can start going. So I'll see you then, and thanks very much for watching.